So
Yeah,
I wanted to give, I think
that's
it's
totally
useful to give a small update on the things we've been brewing and the things that have stemmed up from Substreams Dev and give it a little bit of a primer, communicate better with the community there. So I don't know if you've read the report in the forum. There's a few things. First of all, I think you've seen the merging from GoEthereum. They took out, we had a collaboration with the guys from GoEthereum, and they brought up the technology that was the Firehose technology and bolted that into what they call the live tracer. So it was a collaboration with them and us, and it merged and it was shipped in Geth 1.14, which means that the Firehose now will disseminate to all the Geth derivatives. We only need a small shim now, so it can be maintained upstream with greater ease. So they really, adopted or have seen the value that the Firehose brought to people who needed indexing. So that's cool. It's been released last month. We've shipped a few new things also in Subgraph. I don't know if you're aware, but we've improved the performance of the Subgraph engine on the server side that you won't see. And so to reduce the cost and increase the speed, that's a few weeks ago by adding layers of caching between each Substreams modules. So if you have something that produces some data and something else comes and consumes it later, it's not going to open the big blocks anymore. It's going to consume just the output of the previously cached module, which reduced dramatically the CPU power needed, the transfers, and especially the bytes that were charged to the end user. And so what we've done also is created what we call foundational modules for the different chains that mostly Ethereum right now, but we're rolling out for some other stuff. Solana also has a one for no votes. It purged of all the no votes cache. So when you want to use that, well, you're not opening big blocks. And we're having some for log events on Ethereum, just reduces the block to log events. If you want only that, you won't need to pay for opening big blocks, just the log events. And now the latest thing we've released this past week in a 1.6.0 release of Substreams is what we call block indexes. It's a new type of module. The module you get in whatever input modules. They could be from logs or from large blocks. And over there, you basically output tags. It's like tagging blocks, like it's saying, oh, there's a Uniswap swap in here, or it touches this contract address, or there's an ERC20 transfer from this address or to this address or whatever. You just tag it, there's strings. And so you tag blocks. After that's processed on the whole chain, we have an index of what is in which blocks, and you can consume that with a new tag called block filter. There's a small language there with ands and ors that you can use to say, I want to consume that module, but only the blocks that have certain tags. And in that case, the Substreams engine is able to skip huge chunks of blocks processing because it reads only the indexes, which are very tiny like we pack them by 1,000 blocks. So we read those, and there's a roaring bitmap there, so database technology, to allow us to know which blocks contain the tags and skip it if there's none. So from Firehose. So this is what Firehose did already, but in a general purpose manner. Anyone can write those modules and they can consume them. It's basically what Firehose did with transforms, but just on Ethereum. And so it means that it works across all chains now. Now, GraphNode will leverage that by going through substreams. And as we're going more and more, GraphNode consumes from substreams directly. And this quarter, StreamingFast is working hard on having, bringing substreams into the mappings of the GraphNode. The Engine Node team had made some great work on bringing substreams so that it triggers mappers written in assembly script in version 0.35, I think. And so we're working hard on that so that we're give more examples, and people are going to rather use substreams than directly the Firehose, and they can compose a lot more stuff, bring things together. We're working on a lot of no-code tools also, so you can give it a SPKG and craft it in some shapes and form, and then without writing Rust code, dump it into a subgraph and write your assembly scripts. And in assembly script, you have the first line there, it receives in one big payload as bytes, and there's a byte that decodes protobuf, and then you're all typed in assembly script, and you can have complex object structures. They're not events or logs. They don't need GraphNode to understand. It's protobuf right into the heart of your mapping. So yes, shout out to Felipe for those things. So that's good. And so we've been working and we're continuing to improve substreams.dev over there. That's where we want to have the tools land. And so what we've done there, to get to no code. I don't know if you've tried the Substreams init, you can start scaffold the package. We're basically making a conversational UI that will work both on the web and through the command line. So when you do Substreams init, you're actually conversing with a server that's going to be able to generate the SPKG and compile the Rust code for you. It's going to ask question, maybe ask for an ABI, fetch the ABI from time to time. That's on Solana. But the framework will work on all chains, and you can have a conversation that eventually many people can write. So code generators that also build. And so you download perhaps the source code package in the end, a zip file you can unpack and compile yourself. But then you need to install cargo and all the tools here and there, buff and the protobuf stuff. But we avoid that if you can use this the generated code and you get the SPKG directly. You could upload it to the registry, and then you could use that conversation that you can imagine on Substreams init on the web eventually. A small chat box answers questions, and then boom, you get the SPKG, which you can stream directly or load into your subgraph. So you don't need to write Rust. Okay, that's a lot of new things that are coming. That's not shipped yet. One thing that is shipped, I don't want to shut it too loud because it's still sort of beta and hidden. It's Go support in Substreams. So modules can now be written with tiny Go. And there's a new, like, I haven't publicized that. I just do that in a small context with you guys here. So that if you have feedback, you want to try it, you're curious, you want to, I don't know, tell me you like it or you don't like it. But it's deployed on all of our endpoints. You can ship those little tiny Go things. There's an example in the forum post. You can, yeah, I know. So, but I don't want to announce it too loud if it's, because I don't want to start right away until I see this traction. So that's why it's a small, to start writing documentation, you know, that we have Rust documentation, then Go documentation. So it's small, it's in a corner. Try it if you're really a Go fan, and we'll see where that leads. I'm not sure, okay? And is there anything else I want to tell you? Yes, one important thing. So we've been bringing to the network the traffic that we've been accruing. You know, we've been selling and trying to figure out pricing models for Substreams and Firehose, and we brought that to the network. So last week, we've sent query fees for all the customers that have processed Firehose and Substreams workloads with us through the chain. So it's the first time these services are getting onto the network. And for that, we're building what we're calling the payment gateway beta, sort of our thing. I call it the graph payment gateway beta, sort of thing we're building, StreamingFast. And it's going to live, and the goal there is to have some a federated identity and a way for substreams.dev to consume what you're paying for on the payment gateway. And eventually, I know some of the guild guys are working on webhooks that they could have their webhooks.dev or whatever, but they can still build on the payment gateway, sort of unified payment and authentication place, but with a list of services that can pay outside indexers. So we're testing that. We've been testing that with PNAX and in volume, gathering usage of people who are honoring those authentication tokens is based on JOT. So there's also information on the forum post. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think it can solve a lot of the, so we're trying that. We'll see where that leads. But we're going to be pushing, if you have ideas, send them over. I'm pretty happy. I have 1 minute and a half for questions. So you send them over here quickly. So someone, any Go devs around? Yes. Oh, I know. There's me.
Awesome.
When Cobalt,
folks, I didn't mention initially because Alex had to jump straight into. But yeah, we do have time for Q&A. You have the chat open. If you want to talk, just let me know, and I'll make sure you can unmute yourself. For each topic, we'll have a couple minutes for Q&A.
Question here, Pablo. The trust assumption between the payment gateway and the indexer right now is a quite high trust. The goal of that place is to increase trust so that people can have a purchasing experience that is sort of flawless. So there's definitely a trusting relationship. We want the platform wants to increase trust for the end users, but right now it's sent once a month. It's a crappy thing. We just started. We just sent a lump sum after seeing the usage for our indexer, and then we're going to do that with PNAX and some other folks who want to participate. Please message me. But eventually we'll have more payments that are sent let's say with scalar tap, okay, and stuff like that. Now there's still a trust assumption that the market is going to charge, because it's sending usage metric, and for Substreams we have no choice really because we're billing bytes that are read, right? The service reads bytes from their storage. That's what's billed to the end user. And so there's already for the end user a trust relationship with the service provider that they're trusting they're going to charge them the right amount. And we're going to increase the estimators, and improve the estimators so you can know how much approximately is it going to cost. We've been doing some work on that. We don't have a front end, but there's a back end. If you're curious to know, how many bytes will that cost, or on that network for that chain segment. I don't know if that answers the question, but there's a trust relationship there for the front end of the gateway there.
Pablo, does that answer the question?
Yes, thanks. Let's my suggestion would be let's spend some cycles chatting about how we can reduce those trust assumptions for post MVP stuff.
Yeah. Right. So, one of the things that can be exposed to the payment gateway there, because it's really a distinction between the current gateway, which is two things right now at Edge and Nodes. It's a routing gateway and a payment gateway. So I want to detach the payment section. And so to be able to have routing gateways, and in that case, we're bringing down to the assumption of the gateway, we're honoring traffic, but all the indexers behind there, it's the same verifiability protocol as what we have today. And with Horizon, these can also be things that are, negotiated with the end user, and they can abide by some. So we can lower the trust barriers there, and we can incorporate it's just an experience for payment here and authorization. So we can incorporate a lot of things going forward, I think, down there. So that's all the time I have for you guys. If you want to follow up in private, don't hesitate. Discord or some whatever. Okay. Cheers. Happy to be here with you guys.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for taking the time and jumping in. I didn't mention initially, but folks, I highly recommend you also to check out our forum. There is a category where core dev teams like StreamingFast, that's the company Alex Bourget works for. Each team has been sharing some updates there, so I highly encourage you to follow those as well. Everything is out in the open. We do want your feedback. So yeah, thanks, Alex. Thanks for joining. We'll continue that conversation. Very curious to see how this will evolve. And now let me just go quickly through the agenda. We're 15 minutes in, so I think we still have time to go through everything. We'll start with Marion. Marion, I see you coming online. Marion is business development from the Edge and Nodes team. We're going to go through the Sunrise update. We're going to start with the status update on this big initiative I'm sure most of you are well aware of by now. And yeah, Marion will walk us through the current status, review timelines, and everything. So as always, we have time for Q&A after each topic, so feel free to use the chat. And if you want to talk, just let me know in the chat and I'll unmute you. So let's start with Marion. Yeah, perfect. We can see your screen. Welcome. I think this is your first time here, right?
Yeah, it is my first time. So pleasure to meet
Nice.
you all. I'm Marion Walter. I'm doing partnerships for Edge and Node, and I'm happy to give you an update on the overall view of Sunrise initiative. All right. Yeah, just a quick reminder. This is all part of the Sunrise of decentralized data. So with Sunray, we got all hosted service chains that were supported on the hosted service, now also supported by the decentralized network. We built the easy upgrade flow that's coming in really handy now that we're seeing the upgrades. Did the new 100K free query plan, built the upgrade indexer, and all of this was completed by March 26th. And then we made the big Sunbeam announcement on April 11th, starting the 60-day upgrade window, which really is what we at Edge and Node on the BD side, the BD team are now really hustling on, informing all of our users on the hosted service about the upgrade window and the need for them to upgrade from the hosted service to the decentralized network by June 12th, which will complete the Sunrise. Right. I already mentioned zooming out, there's a lot of work that's going into the Sunrise to make this a success from different parts of the team and of course from the overall ecosystem as well. I've already mentioned that we streamlined billing. The ability or opportunity to pay either in GRT but also just with credit card was a feature that was very much requested by a lot of our users, and we are really happy to have this ready for product for the Sunrise. This comes with the new transparent pricing of $40 per million queries above the. Sorry, Lass mich bitte, ich muss hier im Call. Ja, gib ihm einfach das Fahrrad. Sorry, ich bin im Call. Sorry. Sorry, guys. This is like private things. You know, this is not scripted, yeah? Someone is picking up whatever. So,
Totally
all
fine,
right.
Marion.
And there's 100K monthly queries for free. What comes really handy is the seamless upgrade flow that we've built. Super streamlined, and we've also created like nuggets that show how easy it is to do the upgrade. It really takes from 1 minute to 5 minutes. This is what I've seen so far. And on the other side, we've also improved the network, improvements on latency in the past 5 months, which is also very important now that we move people to the decentralized network. Here, I really got some numbers for you. This is what we in BD are working on day in, day out. So since the 60-day upgrade window was announced on April 12th, we have crossed the 1,000 mark of subgraphs that upgraded from the hosted service. That was 2 days ago. We are at almost 200 subgraphs that had more than 100K queries traffic on the hosted service. And each day we have about 1.5 million billable network queries from upgraded subgraphs. The next big thing is the Sunrise Upgrade Program, which we launched in May, on May 2nd. Briefly what it is, it's a 6-week campaign for individuals of the Graph community and especially community newcomers, consisting of weekly missions where people can earn rewards for completing missions. This will run until June 20th. And there is a high-level view. There is the Web3 Builders track and the Web3 Visionary track. The Builders track is really targeted at technical people, those that are running subgraphs or that just want to get into it. This is all about upgrading subgraphs, curating the network, building queries, and doing interesting things with the data. And then on the Visionary track, this is all about community, especially about education, creating memes, writing educational content, but also creating poems, music, videos, and so on. And yeah, we made the announcement. There is 4 million GRT allocated to this program. And the idea behind that, just taking a step back, is that while we, or I personally in my work, often focus on the projects for them to upgrade, the Sunrise is larger than that. This is a unique opportunity to get interest and buy-in from the whole community. So this program is especially targeted at individuals. So it's for the people, by the people. What we are aiming here is to create buzz, and especially for people, those that are new to Web3, to have a chance to get into this. Because the idea of it is that no matter where you are, if you're just starting out, this is really the ideal place to start because you're not doing it alone. There's a whole community on Discord about this program where you can meet with other people, work on the missions together and solving it together and earning rewards for that in the process. So it's all about empowerment, and it encourages the upgrading and using of the network for the devs, but also for the wider audience to use the network, to learn the network, to really be onboarded to the decentralized network. And yeah, over the past week and a half or 2 weeks by now, we've seen a lot of engagement there already. Just included some of the memes that were created, but if you check out on the social media, you find a lot of assets being created by the community, which is great to see. And one other very important thing is support. The Edge and Node team has a headcount of 5 people by now, which are hustling and bustling in all the chats that we are in all the communications with the different projects that we are reaching out to from the partnership side. to help with anything, any problems, anything where they get stuck in the process of upgrading to the decentralized network. And this has been paramount. I can almost not stress this enough, how much value the support team is creating for the community. So we really have seen them unblocking a lot of people that got stuck, and they are increasing the experience for everyone in the network by 10x. And if you have questions, I can take them now. Let's see.
Thanks, Marion. I don't see follow-up questions. I'm not sure if you've mentioned how people can get in touch if they need help. You mentioned the support. Is it Discord the best venue for this thing?
Yeah, so basically you can reach out in Discord, but also if we already have a Telegram channel open, ping us there. But Discord is a great place to start, and any questions will be picked up by our team. We have constant screening on all the different channels.
Very good. All right. Loved your slides, by the way.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking the time, Marion, and update us all. I don't see follow-up questions in the chat, so I assume we can proceed. As always, folks, do reach out if you need help. Yeah, thanks, Marion. All right, then moving on with the agenda, we're gonna have Paka from Meganode, who's been working closely with Dylan from Masari. I believe we'll go through the latest thinking on the development experience with cross-chain subgraphs. And yes, let me just ensure, Paka, are you sharing your screen? Oh, you are.
Not yet.
Yeah.
I will in a second.
Not yet. Because I'm seeing a screen. Is it Marion's?
It's still mine, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, to kill a little time, this is kind of a brief, I titled a brief DX research update as we kind of talk about some of the initial findings that I've kind of come to, and a lot of them are thanks to Dylan from Masari, so shout out to him. And I might just steal control. All right. So I'm going to try to monitor chat, but apologies if I miss your comment.
I can relay comments if they come, if people ask questions.
Okay, awesome, cool. Well, cross-chain subgraphs, a brief DX research update. And Dylan, I think you're here, so feel free to unmute and chime in as desired.
Yeah.
But to start, I want to lay some context for kind of the strategies and techniques that I've seen in the wild, starting with kind of the more base level developer trying to deploy a subgraph on multiple chains. I mean, that's not super base. It's a fairly complicated problem, but just to set the context, we have some existing workflows in our docs that show people how to do this. One of them involves using mustache templating. And you can see we have configuration files for multiple chains, different addresses, and we're able to templatize our subgraph manifest, and then use Yarn to magically prepare the manifest we need and then deploy. So that's fine enough. And sorry if you're not a developer, it's going to be a little codey today. But this is kind of one of the entry points into deploying on multiple chains. Unfortunately, there's limitations to this, as with the next method. You can see you can't really specify event handlers, per chain overrides, or anything like that. You're really mass kind of blast deploying things on different chains. The networks.json method is a newer kind of way to do this, using a networks.json file where you're able to put in this information, and then we nicely prepare the relevant subgraph manifest using some yarn commands. And you can see here, you just specify what network you're operating on, and then you're able to really just deploy there. But there's still some friction. Again, we're limited to the same kind of handlers. You could write like a bash script to just like loop through all the networks if you want, but that's not ideal. And so now that we've briefly overviewed some of the more simple implementations of cross-chain kind of subgraph deployment, I want to pivot to slightly more involved. It's when you have mostly the same but not identical subgraph on each chain. And so in the wild, this is kind of what I'm seeing mostly. And by the wild, I mean on GitHub, just lurking through public repositories of actual subgraphs for projects, and even just talking to people and hearing what they do. And so in this mostly the same but not identical subgraphs strategy, I'm seeing two kind of sub strategies. One is to have one subgraph per chain, and then optional but common is a management layer to really streamline aspects of operating across multiple chains. And some of these examples include Graph Client, Masari's Subgraph CLI, and even a competitor's product called the Gold Sky Mirror, where they kind of wrap subgraph entities into some YAML, and you're able to mush things across chains. And in this diagram, you can kind of see we have this hypothetical foo protocol. There's an artifact for a subgraph per chain with the schema, manifest, and mappings, and they can be slightly different just because there's differences on chains sometimes between smart contracts. And then you'll notice here in this kind of orange circle, this optional management layer. But increasingly, I'm seeing that it's not optional once you hit a certain scale of operation. And so talking to teams like Masari and Graph Builders DAO, they have their own solutions for that. And then pivoting to the other kind of alternative way of doing things is having a single artifact for all chains. And so now we have this other fictitious project called BarSwap, and they have a cross-chain artifact that's comprised of schema mappings, a manifest that is across all chains, and then these optional overrides that let you kind of specify things on a per chain basis. And the most prominent kind of solution in this space is Ponder. And so now kind of kicking it over a little bit to Dylan, I just wanted to highlight one of the quotes that I took from a recent meeting we had discussing cross-chain subgraphs. And it's allowing one subgraph to pull data from multiple networks seems like too much complexity and could cause issues and make the dev experience not so good. And so I'm curious if there's any feedback from the crowd, either to kind of support or go against that sentiment from Dylan. And the next slide that I'll kind of quickly tease kind of gets at this mental model that I'm starting to formulate about the maybe likelihood of adoption or interest in some kind of solution, a single artifact solution from different team types. And so maybe I'll let this just sit over here as we maybe open it up for a broader discussion. And I can also quickly narrate my hypothesized adoption graph. I think that teams like Masari and large dexes, yeah, I'll share the link to the slides. I think that teams that have a lot of investment already into custom management layers, there's a ton of friction or high switching costs to go to something new, especially if they're already dealing with quote unquote legacy subgraphs or projects that have multiple subgraph artifacts because they've just been around. Same thing, I think that a DAO of enthusiast builders, i.e. Graph Builders DAO, they also have high switching costs, but they're more likely to switch or try this out because they're enthusiasts and really love building for the sake of building to an extent. Kind of pivoting quickly to other projects, something like a large existing project with subgraphs across chains. I imagine they're not going to be super keen on switching unless there's some kind of white glove migration experience that helps them. And there's some kind of maybe more handholding to facilitate the switch. And then finally, new teams or existing teams that are new to cross-chain, I think are the most likely to try this kind of solution, assuming we go with like a one artifact solution. But I just wanted to quickly share how I'm kind of modeling teams I see, and I would love to get inputs from you all that either confirm or refute how I'm thinking about things. Seeing the chat is a little quiet, but I would love feedback there, or unmuting, or even from Dylan, if you want to maybe chime in on your perspective, if I'm misrepresenting you or if this is kind of accurate.
Sure. I think in terms of like, we probably fall in like the high switching costs category as well. Like our solution, essentially we have kind of some brief context. We have an NPM package that we made in-house, and it's essentially like a wrapper over the graph client, and it allows us to like pretty easily deploy subgraphs based on like configurations, and we can even do like a large deployment at once. So I could like deploy all of Aave in one command, and it would deploy like 20 subgraphs, which is pretty nice for us. So that's kind of our solution, and I mean it's been working for us, but it's very specific to our repository.
Yeah,
is kind of the challenge with that, but definitely would incur like high switching costs.
No, and even thank you for that context, Dylan, but even the way you're talking about, oh, it's one command is deploying 20 subgraphs. I don't know that necessarily all teams are at that scale. And so a solution that works for you might not work for like the hackathon team, unless we're at the point where people are deploying to that many chains day one. And I don't know. And I could see where a single artifact could get messy if there's 20 or 100 chains that you're working on. So yeah, what do you all think? I'm curious. Also, what's your perspective on the future of chains? I'm seeing Matthew saying the world of rollup chains, one chain per app. Yeah, that's a lot of subgraphs. Dylan's like, excellent.
I see a comment back from Dylan from Pedro. I remember making 2 subgraphs, one for each chain. On the consumer side, front end, the worst part was integrating data from 2 different sources in a frictionless way. This might be related to composition as well. Maybe on
totally.
I mean, yeah, totally. It's still like client side composition. Maybe graph client could help you out, but it's not the best way.
Yeah, that's a challenge, and I guess I failed to highlight that these management layer solutions, they vary in kind of the feature set. Like Masari Subgraph CLI, I believe it's both consolidated querying and deployment. So it's quality of life for both of those, like streamlining that, I think, right, Dylan? Or
our solution is only on the deployment side. So we have like our ingestion layer essentially kind of loops through the subgraphs and makes queries from like a template file or a JSON file that contains like all the metadata about subgraphs that we have.
Okay.
I think it would incur less switching costs if there was like more of like a roll up of you have Aave v3 on all. I guess if you were to combine the query layer more tightly, that would incur less switching costs for us than the deployment layer.
Okay. Yeah. And Pedro is commenting about Graph Client, and that's another thing I posed to Dylan too. And I think that might also be an interesting area of future exploration in this, and maybe or maybe not, but enhancing the deployment tooling of client, just because it is already doing some of the query side streamlining. Graph Client lets you take subgraphs across different chains and kind of consolidate it into a single endpoint to query against. So that's nice for certain teams. But again, it may not work when there's 20 chains or 100. And by work, I mean just be streamlined or efficient for your needs. But yeah, next steps, kind of Dylan alluded to this, that the deploy logic in Messari Subgraph CLI is pretty customized to their repository, like their needs in building subgraphs. But there's some really useful concepts there that might benefit the community at large. And so moving forward, definitely can have more discussions on how we could generalize some of those tools for broader adoption across subgraph developers. And then more feedback sessions with people like Dylan and others from the community. And that's all I really have. But are there any questions? And thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Paka. And to our YouTube audience, you can still relay your feedback using our Discord. This will probably be on the forum soon as well, so you can use that. Feedback really is important for us. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. All right, and thank you, Paka and Dylan, for walking us through this. Appreciate it.
Thank
All right,
you.
and Pedro, I'm sharing. Yep, we're sharing I'll also share the links in the show notes for those that are watching us on YouTube. The link to Graph Client, how you can try subgraph composition on the client side that may help you with the data wrangling on the client side, as Paka mentioned. Yeah, and we also have the slides. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Paka. Yes, Marion, you can take over the meeting to respond. You're free to speak. Let's.
No,
free to take
actually,
over, Marion,
I
before we
wanted
go to
you to
Pablo.
take over the meeting because, yeah, it seems like I'm the host now. I just wanted to hand that over.
Oh, that's fine. That's totally fine. Let me. You're the co-host, so. Oh, there you go. It's totally fine. All right, awesome. Let's move forward. We have Pablo from EduNode. Pablo has been on this call many times before. I always appreciate Pablo taking the time to come here and update us all. You might have seen a proposal on the forum related to indexing fees. This is an old GIP or the draft. Since then, the team has been hard at work, fine-tuning and thinking of an MVP. And so I believe another GIP update or another draft will soon be available on the forum, but we figured we should take this call to share with you what our latest thinking is as well. So again, Pablo, thank you so much. I see you coming online, so you should be able to speak and present.
Awesome. Thanks, Pedro. And hi, everyone. It's always good to be here. I'm going to share my screen. I don't have a presentation, but I do want to walk through some of the things that we have so far. Yeah, and hopefully we will have a GIP for this relatively soon, I hope. But yeah, as Pedro said, we want to have give a glimpse of what we've been working on, what we have in mind. And eventually when it hits the forum, we'll have some discussions as usual, but we'll also be discussing this in Indexer office hours and other venues. So in case you're not familiar with the old indexing fees proposal, the original GIP, that was GIP-58, its approach was quite different from what we're thinking right now. At first, it was designed as something that would replace curation and replace its bonding curves. It is still, in a way, something that we've built, that we're building to address some of the challenges with curation, some of the things that don't quite work as we need them to. But it had a few things where it's different from what we're thinking right now. So to summarize a little bit, the idea is curation is a bit complicated, especially like for subgraph developers. It's not a very intuitive thing, and it has a few problems in how it makes it hard for an indexer to predict how much they'll get for a specific subgraphs, and it makes it hard for a developer or someone interested in a subgraph being indexed to know how what QoS they get for however amount of GRT they put in. So to solve this, the proposed solution was to have this indexing fee scenario where basically in the original proposal, it was a consumer choosing an indexer and agreeing with that indexer for a price to index a subgraph. This was meant to have these desiderata, that is, giving indexers a good certainty of the revenue and profitability, having low volatility, having quite good certainty on the QoS, and making it hopefully as Sybil resistant as possible, efficient and simple. This actually sparked quite an interesting discussion in the forums. Like it's probably one of the longest threads in the forum. There were some concerns that were raised. In part of the problem was this proposal was relying on a very early idea of what we eventually called Graph Horizon, where it had more of a specific approach to changing issuance and changing indexing rewards. Since then, the Graph Horizon proposal has evolved to what you may have seen in the forums as well. So we do have a proposal out right now that has been discussed. We have the council has expressed support for the brownfield version of this, and it doesn't include any changes to issuance. It's mostly building a sort of framework of staking of a staking mechanism for the protocol to allow permissionless deployment of data services. So within that Graph Horizon, the original Graph Horizon proposal, there was this change to issuance. There was not a lot of clarity to this, so it made sense that like people were concerned, like what's coming up, what are we replacing curation with, and what happens with rewards, and if the only source of funding for indexers is this new indexing fees mechanism, how do we make it sustainable for the large base of indexers that we have right now, especially during the bootstrap phase. So since then, that was one of the concerns. The other concern was some indexers in particular were worried that like this idea of consumers, like end subgraph developers choosing the indexers kind of breaks a lot of the way the network is designed. And I actually agree with this. Like the design of the network is a network model where the network itself sort of abstracts the service providers, the indexers, from the consumer, and that is something we want to preserve because it also helps with decentralization, and it makes it harder for a single provider to accrue network effects instead of the network itself accruing network effects. So the way we're thinking about this now is different from that original mechanism in that it's much more reliant on automated selection. That is kind of the thing that we're building, the thing that we think will provide the best quality of service for consumers, the best, overall values aligned design for the network. So, and at the same time, like we've removed this idea of, replacing issuance. We are working on a very comprehensive proposal to change the way issuance and indexing rewards work. But that's going to be a separate thing that we're going to present, and it'll address all of these concerns from indexers and from other members of the community. So we're still working on that. So that's going to be for a future core devs call. But I think it's worth mentioning that yes, we do want to change indexing rewards and change the way we do issuance in general. But our proposal will definitely consider a lot of these concerns, ensuring indexers have a sustainable income, and like ensuring the decentralization of the network, and hopefully addressing a few other things as well. Cool, but so with these changes, the indexing fees mechanism that we want to build is, from the consumer's point of view, actually a lot simpler in that we're kind of separating the product from the protocol. I don't know if some folks have heard of the Web3 mullet, where it's kind of Web2 in the front and Web3 in the back. And I think we're kind of looking for an approach like this, where the developer, when they're interacting with a product like the Subgraph Studio, they just select some sort of plan, some form of payment approach for how much they'll get charged for the subgraphs. We're still kind of figuring out if this is a pay-as-you-go thing, if it's like a fixed plan or whatever. But then behind the scenes, this goes to a gateway instance that gets that subgraph into a list of subgraphs to to index and to pay for indexing. And it uses an indexing, what we call an IISA, so an indexing selection algorithm to differentiate it from the query indexer selection algorithm. I know this is a mouthful, so we might look for a different name for that. The gateway will request that the chosen indexer for indexing the subgraph. It sends a signed voucher saying, you know, I want you to index the subgraph. This is the price, because the indexer will previously post what is their price. And the indexer will then automatically create an indexing, like an allocation for the subgraph and start indexing. Eventually, when they post a POI, they get a voucher from the gateway saying, okay, here's your payments, and they collect it just like they collect query fees. Now, this is MVP. This is like how we can do this in the simplest possible way without even modifying the smart contracts. And we think we can get this to at least a demo relatively soon, and hopefully to production also relatively soon, so that people can start using it. Obviously, we're going to need indexers to support this. So we will be chatting with indexers in the in the future. Hopefully, like indexer office hours, and we'll probably have a few conversations about, you know, getting you set up with this new thing, and also getting your feedback on the experience of setting this up as an indexer as well, because we obviously want this to work for you, and we need to understand how we're going to do that pricing in a way that works for you as well. So this is the MVP, but this MVP has obviously a lot of trust assumptions. When the indexer gets the voucher from the gateway saying, you know, I want you to index this, they are in a way trusting the gateway to pay them once they've actually posted the POI for that. And we want to build the network in the most trustless or minimal trust way possible. So what's coming right after that, and we're kind of working on the smart contracts for that soon, is an extension of that, where once the indexer gets the voucher and they start indexing that subgraph, they post that voucher on chain into a subgraph service contract that will be part of this upcoming Graph Horizon big upgrade. Well, probably a second iteration of that. And after that, they can, as long as the payer, the gateway, has funds on the tap, well, the Scalar escrow, they can automatically collect whenever they post a POI that payment. And there's no way the payer can get away from doing that payment as long as they have funds in the escrow. Obviously, you can cancel the agreement at some point, but the indexer is always guaranteed to get payment up to the point where they've indexed so far. So we think this is kind of the soundest possible way to implement this, the more trustless approach. But starting with the MVP allows us to try this out with real subgraphs, with real indexers out in the wild, and see how everything else besides the smart contracts works out in the field. There's a lot of things to tweak, like how does the pricing work? How do we get a good QoS? How do we design that indexer selection algorithm that we're working on right now, so that it balances choosing the indexers that give you good QoS for a good price, and also in a decentralized way, in that, like, you don't want to send all of the contracts to the same, all the agreements to the same indexers, partly because this is not great for QoS, but also this is not great for economic security, because, you know, every time an indexer gets more business for the same stake, their economic security rating in a way goes down. So the ISA will consider all these things, and what I would expect is we're going to see not a round robin, but something where, like, every indexer that has a decent QoS, competitive price, and kind of they're doing things well, they'll get a chance at being selected for these algorithms. But at the same time, this kind of provides the kind of setting for indexers to actually start competing for this, and the best indexers will get more business in the form of indexing fees, but it's still in a way where, like, it's open for a big number of indexers to be able to get this, rather than kind of sending everything to a single one. And also, I mean, just as a reminder, this works in parallel to the existing indexing rewards mechanism, so there will still be curation, just not done by subgraph developers now, hopefully, but like we can have pure curators that, or it might be the same indexers, adding GRT for specific subgraphs, and that can act as a boost for the income from indexing fees. So yeah, we are hoping that this addresses the main concerns that were raised before. We're quite aligned, I think, in trying to ensure that indexing fees are built in a way that is sustainable for indexers, while at the same time providing the best experience for subgraph developers and consumers. And yeah, as usual, we're gonna love hearing your feedback in the forums. I think that's all I got, yeah.
Awesome. Just relaying a message from Vince. The network chooses the best performing, gets more business.
Yeah, maybe one caveat to this is actually, like currently it's the gateway choosing. Gateway is the permissionless role. If someone doesn't want to trust the gateway, like to do these arrangements for them, they can set up like their own gateway instance, so to speak. So like if you were very paranoid, if you want to do the more trustless setup and just run this yourself, you can. But I think we're building it in a way that it will make it very clear that the best way of choosing, whether it's through someone else's gateway or your own, is with this kind of ISA. The first things we're saying is like, if you have, I don't know, 100 indexers and they all have like a 97% success rate, then actually if you choose like 2 or 3 of them, that's the best way you can get like 3 or 4 nines success rate or uptime. And in general, all of the analysis that we're doing so far seems to show like actually decentralization is good for QoS, which is, I think, was one hypothesis we've always had, and it's nice to see that, like, at least in the preliminary analysis, yeah, it's good that the network chooses, and it's good to choose following the network's kind of proposed ISA.
Very nice, super exciting. Checking the chat. Don't see questions. So yeah, as Pablo mentioned, more details will be on the forum soon. Also disseminated through next office hours in the following weeks and months. Yeah, it's nice to see progress, and we're getting there. All right, I don't see more questions. We have 3 minutes left. If that's all, I think you can take those 3 minutes back. This will be on YouTube, as always. Meeting notes will be on the forum as well. And yeah, as always, do reach out to all of those venues if you have some feedback. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks, y'all. I'll see you in a month. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for all the speakers for taking the time to present all of these nice updates. And yeah, have a good day, y'all.
See ya. Thanks.
See ya.
Cheers. Thank you.